We're also joined by Alicia Dose, who's the executive director of BuildGreenCT, and then, of course, our guest for this Career Conversations event, Kyle Farmer, architect at Wolfworks firm and a certified past spouse consultant. Wolfworks is a design build company focused on sustainable, low energy, primarily residential new builds and retrofits. Thanks so much for joining us today, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to chat with everyone.
So, just to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown how today will go, I will basically interview Kyle. We'll have a little conversation, focused mainly on his career background, what he's working on currently, and where he sees his work going in the future. This is intended to be informative, particularly for professionals that are early in their careers and looking to get involved in sustainable construction. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to add to the conversation, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll leave some time at the end where I can bring up your questions in the chat with Kyle, or you could also speak up and ask them yourself if you're so inclined. Kyle, just to kind of start things off here, can you tell us a little bit about Wolfworks, what kind of work you guys do, and just kind of what makes your firm unique?
Yeah, sure. So our company Wolfworks, we're located in Avon, Connecticut. We call ourselves a mission-based company, working on high performance and energy efficient homes. Although we are in the process of kind of venturing out into other markets that are more community-based and getting into some affordable housing. Um, our projects all have a mission to increase the energy efficiency of the home on retrofits. We do a lot of remodels as well as new construction. We're also working really hard to lower our embodied carbon. We're working on our first straw panel home as well, out down in Southbury, which we're excited about. And we try to provide as much guidance as we can to homeowners to let them know, what they can do with their existing home or what's possible with a new home, and the opportunities that arise at certain times. We do draw some hard lines in the sand, which is one of the learning points I wanted to point out with to some of the emerging professionals when working with clients in terms of, feeling comfortable standing on values and making sure those are baked into what you do and not just something that can be added on, down the road. So we are a team of currently of five. There's two designers. What's also exciting about our firm is that we have two builders in-house. Janet and Connor are our construction managers. They work with me during design, which is great to hash out ideas and drawings on paper for construction feasibility and budgeting. And then when it comes time to build the project, they assemble a trade team and are the project supervisors and administrators out in the field. So it's a very collaborative environment from the get-go, and something that I really was drawn to when I joined Wolfworks in 2021.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, no, it's really fantastic to hear a firm like Wolfworks really standing behind their values and their mission and really working to advance sustainability in a built environment. That sort of thing is really important, I think, to getting clients on board. Can you tell us in a little more detail about your current role at Wolfworks and maybe what your day-to-day works looks like?
Yeah, sure. So we are a small company, and we also recently converted to a worker cooperative in 2023, which was exciting. So that allows any employee to become can join the ownership group of the company. Everyone would have a single share and a single vote for decisions. So it's a very consensus-based decision making here. So I am one of the co-owners, along with Janet, who is the director of construction. I guess my technical role is the director of design. I am an architect, and run the design department, and also am in charge of sales and marketing and our fund committee, which is one of the most important things. So day to day wise, a lot of client communication. We have multiple projects going on at once, trying to project manage those projects down our funnel to get them into construction. Um, we also I also take a lot of sales calls or leads that are inquiring about work, and we have a standalone kind of feasibility service that I partake in where we provide an initial study and some budgets for projects before we enter a design agreement. So I would say I'm pretty split between design work and sales and marketing work to keep, work coming into the company, which is relatively new to me since joining Wolfworks. In my past experience, I was strictly a project architect, working on project specific tasks, being mostly billable towards other, for clients. And now I'm in a role where it's a little bit more business management and making sure that the company can continue to run.
Very cool. Yeah, that's honestly amazing to me how many hats that we ask architects to wear, particularly at your level, not only doing the design work and ensuring the construction goes smoothly, but also building the business. Somehow somewhat underrated aspect, I think, of the career. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were previously involved with the Build Green CT emerging professionals community. Is that correct?
I was involved with the Connecticut Green Building Council, and then there was, the conversion to or the joining to the Build Green Connecticut. I think I aged out of the emerging professional scenario, unfortunately. But yeah, definitely, communities like this are wildly important to growth. I would say that getting to know folks through Build Green Connecticut. I'm also really heavily involved in NESE, which is the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, has been really pivotal to my growth and my networking.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, hoping to bring those benefits to more of our EPs and members here. And I know that sustainability is a big part of the work you do. You mentioned some of that already in regards to some of your passive house net zero style work, as well as your focuses on embodied carbon. Interestingly, on the Wolfworks website, I saw that you're beginning to teach your two sons about leaving the planet in better shape than you found it, a concept that you surprisingly learned about playing Little League Baseball. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was a big baseball player growing up and through college, and one lesson that gets instilled to you from the very beginning is when you go into a dugout, you have to leave it cleaner than how you found it. So that's kind of a really direct relationship to how I approach my work, especially once I have a 7 and a 5-year old, and just want to make sure that when I'm no longer here, that I did what I could to make things as good as they could be.
That's awesome. How could you not be romantic about baseball, am I right?
Yeah.
Can you share maybe a defining moment or project that really solidified commitment to sustainability in your work? I know you mentioned you're working on a straw bale project in particular.
I would say earlier on in my career, I previously worked at a company called Amenta Emma, which is a larger firm in Hartford, Connecticut, and I had the opportunity to work on a very large existing building that was over 100 years old in downtown Hartford, and we had to design and build that project to the Connecticut High Performance Standard, which was essentially like a LEED certification, but for a public project in Connecticut. It was very intense, and there was a lot of things at stake in terms of the contractor and architect liability. So I ended up spending about 9 months on site in a trailer, which was probably one of the most career defining moments of my career, or defining moments of my career. Um, Mostly because it was my first time really being side by side with the folks that perform the work in the field based on what you drew, and seeing what information they needed, what would hold them up, the kind of issues they would come across, and that was just something that I really tried to soak in and take with me when I was done with that project. But I say that because there were so many, as an architect, you're responsible for making so many decisions throughout a project. And by following just a high performance standard, there's so much low hanging fruit, so many little decisions you can make that have a pretty big impact that I just wasn't aware of at the time. So that was kind of my first like eyes open. I really need to focus on what I'm drawing and what I'm specifying. And also being able to collaborate in a different setting than in an office, like in the field with the builders and the trades folks, was something I was really drawn towards. And I think it's really important when it comes to high performance or sustainability is being collaborative with the folks that are performing the work, so that details get executed properly. You understand what can and can't work based on their feedback, and you treat them as a partner as opposed to just this is the way we're going to do things. So I draw a lot from the 9 months in the trailer, working side by side with the builders. That was a really fun time.
Yeah, I feel like that's something I hear fairly often from architects is that they don't necessarily come out of school with a strong understanding of the construction and building, and that knowledge really is so important to doing, effective design work, particularly I think when you're um, looking to implement sustainable principles. Did you always see yourself in getting into architecture, particularly sustainable building, or how did your path evolve over time?
Yeah, I think pretty early on, I realized I wanted to pursue architecture, like in high school, through a couple classes. I went to Wentworth up in Boston for 5 years. And unfortunately, sustainability wasn't really a focus at that time. I mean, again, that was quite a while ago, so hopefully things have changed. But it was more design theory and design based more so than real life application. So I really got my education the first few years working at Amenta Emma in Hartford, and I also interned there. Um, and I was not necessarily trying to focus on sustainability. I think every architect student's dream is to, design the beautiful building or be that star architect. And I slowly saw my dreams kind of change to I don't necessarily want to just design beautiful things, but want to um, have an impactful career and figure out what that really meant. And for me, it was working on projects that were meaningful, that made me feel good, while also helping others. So I got the opportunity to work on some assisted living projects and educational projects that I was like, oh, this is great, but didn't have the sustainability part really baked into that. So I tried, or we did start a sustainability committee at Amenta Emma, which was great, and really tried to focus the efforts of the company in creating some standards that we'd apply to all projects. And then I saw an opportunity to join Wolfworks during COVID, and it was this small kind of design build residential firm, but the work that Jamie, who's the founder, and Janet, who's now one of my partners, were doing was really inspirational. And at the residential scale, it's no less challenging than the work I was doing, at a commercial firm. So yeah, I wouldn't say that I was necessarily diving into sustainability right off the get-go. It was something I grew into, and something that similar to architecture, you're just going to constantly learn and gain new material.
And as you've kind of grown into this industry and built your career in that direction, what are some of the challenges that you face, both in terms of your professional development and then maybe also in terms of growing the style of construction that you advocate for and believe in?
Yeah, I would say the first was just growing my building science knowledge. That was really important. You can't, fake your way through this. And luckily, there's a ton of really passionate folks out there that are willing to pass down knowledge, or there's a lot of resources like this, like Build Green Connecticut or Nessie or Passive House, different all types of places to go find information and learn. So that was the initial challenge was just getting my education in building science. And then I would say also finding the right, um, working with the right folks that really feel the same way that you do. A lot of places will say that they are green or sustainable designers, but when push comes to shove, that could be the first thing that gets cut from a project. So working with people that have that baked into them was really important, and I think was definitely not necessarily a challenge, but once I was in a position where that was evident, it was clear the benefits that would bring. And then another challenge is learning how to communicate your values with clients or with trades. So there's a lot of folks that have been doing it this way for the past 30 years, and this is the way we're going to do it. And you have to be able to communicate and break through that and show your value to whoever the audience is, and um, you know, explain why it's important that we're doing things a certain way. So just learning how to speak to different types of people over time is an important skill for any profession, but especially as an architect.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, but you mentioned building science and your sort of secondary education, learning about building science. Are there any specific resources that you found particularly helpful or informative when you were sort of building out that knowledge base that maybe our
Yeah,
EP community could draw on?
a few come to mind. There's a resource called I think it's HeatSpring is an online kind of um, publication, or they have different classes you can sign up for. But specifically, there was a class I took that was by a mechanical engineer named Mark Rosenbaum, and he is kind of like a godfather in the residential industry or the high performance industry. And he kind of walked me through a 12-week high performance building class that was life changing. And I think that's still available. The format might have changed a bit. I've also attended a bunch of NESI conferences that are really geared towards both residential and commercial type scale projects that not only are the sessions great, but you just bump into people in the halls and talk, you get a great networking opportunity there. And they're, in Boston or New York City. So it's always a fun time to head out there. Um, and then on the residential side specifically, there's a great event in Burlington, Vermont called Better Buildings by Design. And it's another conference, but really, I feel the intent is to really kind of geek out and nerd out on new technologies that are coming out, what people are doing. It's really case study heavy, which is always really important because um, someone's tried something you're trying in the past, and it's great to just get that knowledge.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. You mentioned those technologies, new developments. Are there any emerging trends or technologies that you're specifically excited about right now?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm biased being in the mostly residential world, but we always specify air source heat pumps for most of our projects. We've been waiting and looking for a kind of one-to-one plugin for an air-to-water heat pump system that can be used to retrofit existing baseboard radiation, so that are on oil. Houses that are on oil systems can just be swapped out as a one-to-one with air-to-water heat pumps. Unfortunately, I don't think that's quite there yet, but we're keeping a close eye on that. I would also say just the on the embodied carbon side, I mentioned earlier we're working on a straw panel house in Southbury. We have a peer network group of uh, a thing called the Seed Collaborative, which is a series of companies really throughout the entire country that are focusing on producing and designing straw panel production for all types of projects. So there's one in Northampton, there's a few in Vermont. I believe there's a company down in Texas as well. So trying to support the Seed Collaborative as much as we can for those bio-based materials and low embodied carbon construction methods. Um, this is our first one, so we're learning a lot going through it, but it's definitely something that we want to take more advantage of. Sorry to ramble on this one, but this one's exciting. The other thing is we're trying to reduce our foam use as much as we can. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's difficult in remodel projects that we work on a lot. It's easy just to call for some closed cell spray foam because it's hard to get to. So we're looking for alternate material selections or alternate assemblies to reduce our foam use. And Timber HP is a product that we've been keeping an eye on. It's a little difficult to get our hands on, but they have a loose fill and mostly we're looking for the rigid exterior insulation as a wood fiber insulation as opposed to using a polyiso product. So those are some things that come to mind.
Yeah, those low embodied carbon materials, so critical to like really making a major impact on the carbon footprint of the construction industry. And it just seems like there's sort of a gap right now where they're not widely available, or at least not cost effective in many cases, depending on which products you require. But really awesome to see companies such as Wolfworks pioneering and taking on the
Yeah,
challenge of
Jeremy,
implementing some of these
I want to
materials.
add one more to that too.
Yeah,
Is
yeah, please.
sorry, just the use of foam aggregate insulation for like below slab applications has
Hmm.
been fun. We use a product called Glavel, which takes the place of gravel and EPS, which we would put underneath our homes. Now we can use this recycled foam aggregate, which is both insulating material but also provides that drainage plane. So that's just another low embodied carbon opportunity that we found recently.
And for those in the audience that might not be as familiar with embodied carbon or the disadvantages or negative impacts of foam. Can you maybe just speak briefly about why you're so passionate, I guess, about reducing foam on your projects?
Yeah, so I'll back up a bit. I would say, I'm sure if folks have worked in companies that are worked on high performance homes or high performance buildings, I think our industry has gotten really good at lowering the operational carbon, which is like how much energy is required to run the building once it's built. And there's plenty of case studies and opportunities to lower that operational carbon aspect of a project. Now we're shifting our focus a bit to the embodied carbon of all of the creation of the materials, how it's transported to the site, how it affects the people that are making the materials as well. A little bit of equity for some of the workers as well. So we're trying to find low embodied carbon materials because we feel that the on the operational side we're building net zero buildings and high efficient building shells and lowering heat loss as much as we can. And the next frontier is to really lock in on this embodied carbon aspect and continue to make a bigger dent.
And now pivoting a little bit into just maybe advice for the emerging professionals and the students in the group. What's something that you know now that you wish you had known when you were first starting out as an architect and first getting into particularly green building, so to speak?
Um, yeah, I would say uh, that it's okay to ask a lot of questions and try to find, I mentioned before, finding the right people to talk to. Um, there's a long legacy of folks that have been at this for a long time, and have experience both on the positive and negative side of trying different assemblies or different techniques to achieve a high performance building. So I would say, um, you know, getting acquainted with those folks or finding those folks and not being afraid to ask questions, or even people in your office that, might have more experience. Um, don't feel like you have to solve every issue on your own. And at least in our company, I prefer when the other designers ask questions while they're working it out, as opposed to try to figure it out on their own and then, are afraid of asking questions or getting it wrong. Um, it's kind of an architectural practice. It's something that, you're continuously evolving, and there's always different ways to look at details that have been done. So um, I think one thing is just making sure that you ask questions and don't try to put your head down and figure out something in a silo.
Definitely great advice for any career path. Obviously you come from an architecture background. I personally did not, but I was also able to find my way into sort of the sustainable construction industry through 475 and serving as a consultant for 475. In your experience, I guess, what other opportunities do you see, careers, skill sets, etc., that could allow emerging professionals without an architecture background to break into the industry?
Yeah, I would say there's an immediate need for tradespeople, um, all across the board. We're dealing with that on our end and trying to help support trades. Plumbers, electricians, carpenters. There's just doesn't seem to be as many folks going that direction, and getting your hand. I don't know if there's always like this. Perfect scenario of an architect that used to be a builder, because they just come with a different sense of knowledge, and I'm not one of those folks. So I lean a lot on our builders in-house. Um, but I think that the trades arena is something that folks can get into. Um, just design or material vetting as well. There's a lot of materials out there, and whether it be declare labels or um, trying to audit different materials for folks to use on their projects, I think is another opportunity as well. But on my side, where I stand with our company, it's mostly in the trades and trying to get people excited to work, do those projects, especially with um, the high performance background or aspect of it.
This is the first time I'm having one of these career conversations through BuildGreenCT, but I previously would do similar interviews when I was teaching at City College for the students that were part of my class. And that's an answer that I heard so frequently from the people that we brought in to to interview is that background in trades and really understanding how things are built, what tools are used, which materials are used. Just that general mindset and approach seems to be invaluable to people trying to get involved in this field. Um, so I guess just one question to kind of wrap up this interview, and then we'll open it up to the group. Looking forward for you, are there any projects or goals or dreams on the horizon that you're especially excited about?
I mentioned the straw panel project. That's obviously exciting for us. We also recently did a strategic planning retreat, me, Janet, and another staff member, to figure out where we wanted to take Wolfworks in the next, 5, 10, 15 years. We've been mostly focusing on single family residential remodels and new builds. Definitely something that we're still want to maintain, but starting to venture out into some other types of projects, and specifically trying to help the housing crisis that we're in the middle of and going to continue to get worse. And where can we bring the most value to folks? So trying to find opportunities for some low rise multifamily type projects, not necessarily like the 100+ units, but something on a smaller scale that would be better suited for us. And we have our first opportunity, which is a kind of a smaller hotel project that we're going to be converting an old Victorian home to a hopefully a net zero project down by the shore, and we're pretty excited to pull that off. We also just completed we call them deep energy retrofits, which are remodels where we're totally changing the performance of the building shell with insulation and air sealing, electrifying the house. We had a 1900s Victorian in Hartford that we're in the middle of construction for, and insulation just wrapped up. And we're just really excited for that transformation to bring something that's beautiful from 1900 to be a future friendly home.
Really so important to reuse the existing buildings wherever possible. Obviously, the greatest way to reduce the impact of a development is to reuse an existing structure. So that's fantastic to see those historic buildings go into good use. For the emerging architects and trades that might be in the audience here, are there any opportunities as Wolfworks hiring for any positions at all that you might want to plug, or are you guys?
Yeah, sure. We're always looking for talented and mission-driven folks. We will be having a design position available in the near future within the next few weeks. And we'll be definitely using BuildGreenCT's platform to try to get that message out as much as we can. Um, and again, it's just trying to find folks that are equally as motivated by doing this type of work as we are. We can train and teach folks whatever we need to. It's more just getting the right people on the bus and um, just getting. And I think we have a really fun collaborative environment here. Having the build team in house is really invaluable, especially as a young architect learning how things get put together or how things get done in the field. Having that direct feedback might not always come with a smile on their face, but it's always really valuable information.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Hopefully, we can help you fill some of those openings. Cool. So that pretty much wraps up the questions that I wanted to ask. Want to open it up to the group now to see if any of our audience members have questions for Kyle. Feel free to unmute yourself or just drop it in the chat.
I have a question.
Alicia, go ahead.
Yeah, Kyle, thanks. You really shared a lot of a really it was just the whole thing was great. But Jeremy and Kyle, I just found it really fascinating listening to the questions and also just the responses. I don't know, I really it was a great way to spend a Thursday. I do have a question because we're always keeping our ear to the ground as Wolfworks is in terms of like new and emerging trends. And obviously, bio-based materials is something that, was talked about. I remember the buzz at a NESI conference a couple of years ago in a presentation given by Ace and Jacob. And, that future is now here. I mean, I'm so delighted to hear that you're also working on a straw bale home. But I'm not familiar with the Seed Collaborative, but I am familiar with the Bio-Based Materials Collective. because we've been talking to somebody who's very active with that group. So now you've really piqued my curiosity. And I feel like I should know about the Seed Collaborative. So is it specific to bio-based materials or is it something else?
No, it's definitely it's ACE again, and putting together. It's almost like a worker cooperative of multiple companies, like pooling all the resources together, and they're all straw panel producers, at least to my knowledge.
Okay.
So they
Interesting.
all collaborate with a local farming agency
Okay.
to get their straw, and they obviously are building and helping providing design support for the panels, and then they are producing those panels, but they share their resources for like marketing, and
Oh,
I think
that's
there's even
great.
profit sharing so that people it helps companies get off the ground. And again, we're kind of collaborating with them, so I'm not necessarily in the Seed Collaborative, but
Got it.
it's definitely it's the same folks that you mentioned before, and they always take things and run with it and do a
I
great
know.
job. So.
Yeah, they are really they're real trailblazers. Because when I Googled the Seed Collaborative, I didn't get it was I see the link that Kate shared. And of
Mhm.
course it's New Frameworks, which is the folks you're talking about. No, I got a
Yeah.
totally different Seed Collaborative, which was interesting. I was like, well, okay, I can, but I don't think that's what Kyle was talking about. So
Yeah.
thanks for clearing that up and adding that because that, again, that's something that I'm definitely going to look into after this session.
Thanks, Alicia. Any other questions for Kyle before we wrap up here?
I have a second one, but I'm going to hold off.
I'll ask Kyle. Kyle, didn't you do the get your passive house training through the Energize CT program?
I did, Sarah, and I think you
Yeah,
were very helpful in that. So
yeah,
I didn't want to plug that because I wasn't sure the status of it.
yeah, sure. Well, I bring it up because if there's other people on the call who are interested in, I'm sort of hijacking your moment here, but if there's other people in the call interested in learning about Passive House, the Energize Connecticut, um, what is it? The Passive House and All Electric Homes Initiative. You can do training for certification and take the test, and you get 75% reimbursement. And that's a great way to help with the cost of learning all that stuff.
I just
Yeah,
popped that
thanks,
link
Sarah. I
in the
should have.
chat too for anyone
Thanks, Kate.
interested. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that as well in some of those areas to find support where the passive house certification process, as well as I was a Living Future associate, so I went through that certification. Those are just really eye-opening processes, especially as an architect, you're constantly taking exams, so it's not too different than studying for your AREs. But highly recommend pursuing those certifications. I did not get LEED certified, and I just went straight to the Living Future and Passive House, but I know that's another great resource as well.
So we do have a question in the chat here from Cedric in California. Thanks for joining us, Cedric. Cedric asked, do you have any advice for an older professional changing careers? I'm leaving software engineering and going design and drafting. I have a lot of CAD experience and knowledge of green building and building science, but not a formal architecture degree.
I would say that definitely is a curiosity and a desire when we get applicants that are changing careers. We want to understand a little bit about like their design thinking a little bit. As an architect, we just want to understand how they process um, information and how they communicate that information, both verbally, written, and drawing, whether it be by hand or drafting. Um, so I would try to find skills from your previous employment in your previous career that transfer well, and emphasize those to the folks that you're applying to, and whether it be communication skills or problem solving, multitasking. There's a lot of transferable skills from one industry into others that I think can be emphasized, and then just you know taking some initiative, and it sounds like you are in terms of some self-education. I think that will show an employer that that you're motivated and you're not, that you would put in, hard effort and be a good employee.
To kind of jump off that question, you kind of touch on it with there's a need for tradespeople in this industry, but is there anything you could say kind of to like the specific skills, say for someone that's like transitioning to a different role, but also the skills that are necessary to succeed in like a role like yours?
Yeah, I would say open-mindedness is really important. Like being able to take information and learn from it and run with it. There's so much that I don't know still, and I'll constantly be learning. But you have to be able to identify opportunities where, oh, this is important. I need to remember this and apply it to the next project or to the next conversation. So I think having that type of mindset of constantly having your ears and eyes open is really important, and a little bit of eagerness, especially when you're young. Um, Also, on the technical side, I do feel there's just a big wave of experienced trades folks and architects that are going to be retiring, and there's all this technical expertise that's going to be required to be filled. And we all know that's not necessarily emphasized in school, and you need some on-the-job training to do that. So getting out to construction sites, having conversations with the folks in the field, talking with your project managers about how things get put together, or what needs to get drawn is another important thing to do. And tech and software wise, we're a Revit based company. There's different softwares for different folks, but I think depending on what skill type of project you want to work on, just do some research into what those types of firms are using. And also just don't be afraid, like you're probably going to change, your interests are going to change over time. I was always interested in working on these big stadium type projects, and now I'm working on 800 square foot ADUs and having a blast. So don't get stuck in a hole.
Yeah. I would echo what Kyle said. I mean, someone said something to me a long time ago, and I've sort of hijacked it to apply to this business or what we're in. But I always say sustainability is a contact sport, and I really mean that. I think there's anybody wherever you are in your journey, not like just talking to people and not being afraid to ask questions and just really coming at it from a sense of curiosity. Because even myself as executive director of this organization, I can't know everything. And I've learned that was one of the lessons I wish I had known when I was first starting out. Like, don't think you have to know everything. There's always somebody else who knows something or can say something that will guide you in your own journey. So, talk to people, ask questions as you did in the chat. I mean, when I read your question, I immediately thought of a company in Massachusetts called Valley Home Improvement. They were I was also in Nessie's Business Bottom Lines program in a different life. And one of the things I remember about that I thought was really cool about Valley Home Improvement is they do their lane is remodeling. I mean, they do a lot of remodeling and deep energy retrofits and whatnot. And they were really big on having like an in-house person or persons, maybe their staff has grown now, that would go in and using technology and the software. I don't know what software they're using, but shooting the house, so to speak, so that they could then turn that into 3D visual design as a 3D visual design tool for their clients. So, I mean, that's a great example where you don't have to, they didn't have an architect doing that. They were actually they're training somebody in-house to do that for them. And that was part of their special sauce relative to how they serve their clients. So again, I think there's a lot out there that doesn't require having to have an architectural degree or design degree, but still taps into those skills, and particularly for people who love diving into software.
Excellent. So that's a great perspective.
Yeah, and software wise, there's a lot of energy software to learn, Therm and Woofy, and I mean, countless others that are critical to understanding the building science. That's another avenue if you're interested in software. That's an important specialty.
Absolutely, yeah. Energy modeling, I see a lot of opportunities in that field. All right, well, it is 4:49 now, so I want to give Kyle a chance to get out of here somewhat on time. So if there's no other questions, we can call it there. Thanks so much, everyone, for taking the time this afternoon to join us. Again, we'll be back on August 21st at 4 p.m. for our next conversation. Hope to see you all there, and feel free to get in touch in the meantime if we can support with anything, or if you're interested in getting involved with the emerging professionals community.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
everyone.
everybody.
Appreciate the time.